Welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones live discussion. I'm joined here by my special guest, of course, my brother Akton Tamko. Thank you so much for joining, Akton Tamko.
Oh, hello, Mark. It's so good to be here. Although I gotta say, I actually don't know if I want to do this discussion anymore because I just found out there's not going to be any elephants in this discussion. I was told there would be elephants, and I don't know. I'm so disappointed in the lack of elephants, but I guess we will still have a good discussion anyways.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I want you in the discussion either because you're not from the north, and I didn't sign up for you to be my guest. But anyway.
Yeah, those northerners are very don't like outsiders is an understatement for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So of course we're here to talk about the season premiere of Game of Thrones. It's crazy how much of a big deal like everyone's making out. Apparently the numbers are like through the roof though, because it's the highest viewed episode in the show's history. But yeah, you guys watching probably know that we were a bit negative on the previous season. And we had a discussion not too long ago about our sort of trepidations. But I think we're both sort of okay on this episode. Why don't you start with your thoughts on the episode overall, Atkin?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was actually as good as it possibly could have been, quite honestly, for the first episode of a season. I never have high expectations for a season premiere. I always expect that there's going to be a lot of setting up things. It's going to be dialogue heavy. I don't expect we're going to have some huge action. I don't understand people are like, where are the huge action scenes? And what are you talking about? They never do that in the first episode. And it... maybe I just had a very low bar, but checked off all the boxes for me. It didn't totally suck. It didn't do anything really stupid. It didn't make no sense. It didn't have any outrageous fan service. It didn't do anything absolutely ridiculous. There wasn't over little finger transportation, teleporters, things going on, or anything just really out there. It was like solid. It had some great character interactions, a lot of reunions. I loved a lot of these reunions, the Sansa and Tyrion one, the Arya and Jon, and then Arya with Gendry, and I loved all of that. I love all these character interaction. So yeah, it was as good as a first episode could be, but I think you and I both said in our reviews that the beginning of season 7 was also good. So
yeah.
I thought to see where they go from here, but I couldn't have asked for anything more out of this premiere, personally.
Yeah, don't want to get too complacent. Yeah, it's funny because in our last discussion, I said what they needed to do for the season to be good was to go back to the character stories and develop the characters. That's something I think the last 3 episodes, season 7, lost. It felt like just plot. Let's move these pieces here, and then you felt no connection, or the characters didn't feel dynamic. And so this first episode did exactly what I said they should do. So this does bode well, but again, don't want to get too confident. But yeah, I totally agree that this episode was probably the best outcome for the first episode. Now, I did have some issues with it, but that's because of the rut that season 7 left them in. I think it was virtually impossible to avoid these pitfalls. And in this episode, we've yet to see Dr. Colossus, so I'll have to see how I feel once Dr. Colossus writing fan service on up here.
I actually heard people complaining about the lack of the Night King, but I thought it was good that you didn't see the Night King and just saw. I thought that the Ned Umber nailed to the wall with the body parts was like a really creepy, really effective way to like show us what the White Walkers, to make us feel the White Walker threat without we didn't have to see the Night King. I kind of liked it that they did it that way.
And I totally agree. And we'll get more into that later, but I thought that Umber scene, like, that boded well for how I think they're going to do the White Walkers. But again, don't want to get too complacent.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go ahead and let's get into some of the nitty-gritty details. I usually like to go by location, and what location is more important in this episode than the title location, Winterfell. So let's start with Winterfell. And the first thing I want to say with Winterfell, I want to talk about Sansa. Like, she's the one who's like most of my mind, because I think the opinion on Sansa is probably the most divisive out of this episode. I've seen very vast different opinions on Sansa. I've heard a lot of reviewers and certain people say that they believe Sansa's actually the only one person has said that she's the only smart one, and she's the smartest person on the show, and that she's like super intelligent, and I don't agree. Judging by your review, I think we're pretty much on the same page that she's being a bit naive about the White Walker threat, and she's focusing too much on Dany, and she's, why'd you give up the throne? Why'd you give up the crown? Blah, 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 blah. When really, none of that actually matters. The only important thing is to defeat the White Walker. So I actually said in my review, and I stand by this, that she's being stupid, at least in that regard. There's another regard she's being smart, but we'll get to that later. But in regard the way she treats Dany, I think she's being dumb, and maybe I'm being too hard on her. Maybe she's just naive because she doesn't understand the full threat of the White Walkers the way that Jon does. But I've heard other people actually side with it, even knowing how big of the White Walker threat. So what are some of your thoughts on that, Adam?
I think I definitely don't agree with the people who are siding with Sansa on that. But I did kind of have a slight disagreement with you in your review when you said she was being stupid, and it's kind of artificial tension that the writers are. I don't think that either way. I don't think that she's stupid, and I don't think it's artificial. I think, as I said in my review, that Sansa, Lady Mormont, Lord Glover, all those people, they don't really understand the White Walkers are abstract to them. They've heard about it. They don't really get it. Like, they don't understand. Like, I promise you that if Sansa had, seen like a whole town of people get decimated by the White Walkers, and she saw some of her best friends turned into whites, and she saw body parts everywhere, and they were going, she would be like, "Oh, Dany, thank God you're here!" Like, same thing with Lady Mormont. If the White Walkers had gone to Bear Island and turned all Lady Mormont's friends into whites, and she watched it with her own eyes, she would be, "Oh, thank God the dragons are here!" Like, I just think they don't understand the threat. It's abstract, but what's real to them, what's concrete to them, is the whole Game of Thrones. Who's the king in the North? Who do we bow to? The North's got to be independent. That is like all they've known, not just their whole lives, but generations and generations is ingrained into them, and that's reality to them. And the White Walkers are still abstract. And furthermore, I predict that whoever survives the battle, in which I believe Sansa will, I've kind of predicted the Lyanna Mormont wouldn't, but we'll see. But anyone who survives that battle, who is now against it, is going to be totally, like, if the dragons are still around, they're going to be begging Dany to ride the dragons to destroy the White Walkers. Once they see it with their own eyes, I really believe that they're going to change their tune. It's just that they don't get it yet. And I also think Jon sucks at explaining it, quite honestly. I think he could, I think he could explain it better personally, but I always think that about Jon when he's trying to convince people of things. Like, I always think he's back when he was in the Night Watch trying to explain to them about why the White Walkers were a big deal and we have to trust the wildlings. I thought he sucked at that too. So that's part of it. But I do. The only maybe legitimate thing I think Sansa said is like, how are we going to feed these dragons? But at the same time, it's just like, well, two things. I mean, the White Walkers are on the way to Winterfell, so only one of two things are going to happen. Either you win, yay, everybody's happy, and Daenerys leaves with her dragons and Unsullied, and you don't have to worry about feeding them, or everybody gets killed by the White Walkers, so you don't have to worry about feeding them. So,
so the point is moot, basically.
The point is moot. Like, the White Walkers are coming down to Winterfell, so even that is like actually not anything she should be worrying about. But I just think they just don't get it. Like, I think that they will, whoever survives it will change their mind after they actually see what the White Walkers do.
And I do think that's a fair point. And as I just said, I think maybe in my review I was being a bit too harsh on Sansa because I wasn't fully taking into account her ignorance. And you're right that she hadn't had the firsthand experience that Jon has. But I still think that the level she took it to, like at the first when she was like being all snooty to Dany, like that's, I can understand that. That makes sense. She doesn't know her. But I think that scene later on when she's kind of drilling Jon, oh, did you do it because you're in love with her? Do you do it to save the North? Like, what does that fucking matter? Like, I don't know. I think they hyped it up to just slightly, not a lot, just a tad. They turned the dial just a tad bit too much on that. And that, to me, just, when I said it felt artificial, I just meant a little bit, not like a lot. It wasn't like a huge thing to me. But here's the thing with Sansa, though, why I think she's still in the wrong, regardless of her ignorance, is that I think the way she's reacting, even not having firsthand experience of the White Walkers, is that she doesn't trust Jon. I think she is totally having, because he's saying if someone really trusted Jon and took him at his word and thought that he was a good leader and thought he knew what he was talking about, they would at least be willing, even if they thought he was overreacting, they would at least be willing to let him go with it. And so her reaction to him, I think, is being very non-trusting. It's showing that she has no faith in him whatsoever. And that's why it bothered me even more when Arya sided with Sansa, because if anyone should trust Jon implicitly, it should be Arya. So that's why her siding with Sansa kind of bothered me. But again, this also has to do with how quickly in season 7 she went from hating Sansa and wanting to kill her to like her. So again, this is sort of the holes of season 7 coming back to haunt us.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. I didn't really have a huge problem with Arya just because of the way she presented to Jon. Like, I love you, but I kind of, I think I kind of a little disagree with you. I kind of was okay with it, but I definitely could see your point. And definitely she did quick turn to Sansa way too quickly, but we could go down a rabbit hole for a long time talking about how they fucked that up in season 7. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see what you're saying, and I definitely do think that Sansa is she should trust Jon more than this by now. I mean, after the Battle of the Bastards, she should have more trust for him than she does in this episode.
I mean, the Battle of the Bastards actually maybe makes me think maybe that's why she doesn't trust him, because Jon actually kind of would have lost the Battle of the Bastards if it wasn't for her, because he wasn't really listening to her. So I don't know, maybe if he had showed a bit more faith in her, maybe she might have more faith in him. I don't know. I still think maybe it's because I'm omniscient and I know that Jon's right in this regard, that I think that she is being very naive for not trusting him.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it has everything to do with the fact that who's king of the North and all that is concrete to them, and White Walkers are abstract. But you're right, though. She should trust Jon a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think she should still be like wary of Dany and stuff. But like, there's all the the fuss that she put up, and I don't understand how anyone can say like that she's the smartest one there and that she's totally in the right, and Jon and Dany are being naive. And I think Sansa's being naive because
Sansa's being totally naive. She has no idea what's coming. No idea.
I don't know, because who cares about who sits on the crown or not? And the whole thing about go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the whole thing about Lord Glover, that's in character for him. Lord Glover was always like this despicable weasel guy, and I hope he fucking dies. I hope they're all turned into whites. I hope we see Lord Glover show up in the Battle of Winterfell as a white. Going, that's what he fucking deserves.
Yeah. What do you feel about Lyanna Mormont's stance? Because I was a little bit surprised, because I thought that she's always been the one who sticks up for Jon, but she was like the first one who was like, and you could tell by her, if you looked at her facial expression when Dany arrived in the courtyard, you could tell. And she was the first one who stood up like, you betrayed us, you're not the king of the North anymore, you gave up your crown. I was like, I was a little bit surprised by that. What did you think about it?
I actually thought that was in character for her because she's always been shown weary of outsiders. Like,
that's true.
The way she treated Stannis, she was like, "Yeah, fuck off. We only have a Stark as our only king."
Yeah.
So that's why she wanted Jon. She supported him because she wanted him to be king. But when he stepped down, it was like, "What the fuck are you doing? I don't want to be ruled by anyone else." But at least, as far as I know, she didn't leave with her 60 men or however many she has.
No.
She at least stayed in support, even though she's very much against it, which is one Lord Glover's being such a dick.
But again, like, she just didn't. It was frustrating because she just didn't get it. When Jon's like, "It doesn't matter," she's like, "It doesn't matter," and like, you wouldn't be saying it doesn't matter if you saw your whole family turn into whites. Like, you wouldn't be saying that. You'd be like, "Who cares about these titles? Oh my god, we're all going to turn into whites and be killed." Like, she just doesn't get it.
For me,
I think we're gonna. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Right. For me, I think the Lyanna Mormont, like, I'm willing to excuse that as being naive and not knowing about the White Walkers. More than I am with Sansa. With Sansa, I think she should be more trusting of Jon. Lyanna Mormont, I think, is kind of... that's kind of okay with me. I think that goes with her character.
I think we're going to see some scenes where, like, Grey Worm saves Lyanna Mormont. She's going to be thankful, or Dothraki save her, or something like. I think we're going to see more trust in the battle when they're fighting against the White Walkers together. I think you're going to see more trust. And did you catch the way that all the like racist Northerners were looking at Missandei and Grey Worm when they came in? Like, "Oh, black people were." But I mean, I think it is more of a mistrust of outsiders in general, not necessarily the color of their skin, but the way that it looked, it was like, "These weird people." So very conservative, the Northerners. I think they would all be conservative since this point. But anyways, I don't want to get down that road. Just very like, and so I think we're going to see that change once the White Walkers are attacking Winterfell, and they all know they have to stand together as living beings. I think we're going to see a little bit of that change during the course of the battle, or at least I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, if she lives to, she could happen during the battle, but she probably.
Yeah, I think like during the battle we might see some scenes where like, they start trusting each other more even if Lyanna or whoever doesn't live to the end.
Oh yeah, because once they actually see the White Walkers and see how big of this threat actually is, they'll be like, maybe they'll feel like the jackasses like they should be. Well, actually, maybe we should not worry about who wears the crown at this moment.
Yeah.
But the other side of the flip side is, and I've heard this point of view as well, which I actually can't really argue with, is that Dany was being a bit arrogant as well. She wasn't making things any better. With her reaction, I like the way that she was sort of quipping with Sansa and being like, "Oh, dragons eat whatever they want," and just being like, "Oh, fuck off, don't fuck with me." And I half expected her to say like, "Oh, it's okay, Jon can be the king again." Like, it does make me think. And then I thought back to the season 7 scenes when Dany and Tyrion were so insistent that Jon bend the knee, and they couldn't see any possibly other way. So it did make me think, maybe, does she really, she could, I understand why Jon wouldn't ease up, but I think that she could have eased up or let some tension.
I think that's all within her character though. Like
yes, that's true.
I think it's totally, I think it would be a little bit out of character for her to ease up on it, or to be like, "Oh, okay, Jon can be king again," or to even be easy on Sansa again, because she's been consistently all throughout, "I am the queen, all must bow to me, I am the queen." I mean, so this is very consistent with her. Like, I would be surprised. I would have been a little surprised if she wasn't behaving this way.
Well, see, I wouldn't really say it would be out of her character. I think it might show character development. It might show that she's moving beyond that, but I guess she's not. And she's staying the same way that she always is, which, again, that's fair. As you say, it's totally within her character. Yeah, I thought there was something I wanted to roll right into that conversation, but hold on, let me just consult my notes here. Oh yes, because let's talk about Davos and Varys and the old men Tyrion with their plan because their plan to ease tension was proposed, or Davos's plan, and Varys is just like, oh, they won't listen to us, because it seems like that actually would be a smart thing to do, because then if they were married, they're kind of both equal, and that would sort of appease the Northerners. But really, we know the Battle of Winterfell is happening in 2 episodes, so do they really have time to get married? I mean, I suppose they could just by proposing it would ease tensions.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't agree that the Northerners are gonna. Oh, you're gonna marry her now? I mean, I don't think that that's gonna make things better. I don't see why they would say, "Oh, you're gonna marry the person we hate." That's great. Okay,
well, now the reason why it would make things better is because it gives Jon more power. It makes him a bit more equal to her, not just her
but
servant.
she's still the rightful queen. I mean, putting aside all of Jon's heritage and all that nobody knows about yet.
Nobody knows,
yeah. She's still the queen. She would make it clear that she's the queen. Jon would, I mean, he's still there. The North is still under Daenerys' rule. It's not an independent kingdom with their own king, so which is what they want. So I don't see how that makes them happier. Honestly, I think that pisses them off more personally.
No, because it would make Jon the king of the 7 kingdoms.
Not really, because
He'd be the king to her queen.
He would be, yeah. He wouldn't be the ruler of the 7 kingdoms. He would be like, the first lady. Yeah, kind of, but like the first man or whatever we would ever call it if we ever had a female president. But yeah, like he wouldn't be the ruler. And the North is still under Targaryen rule. It's not an independent kingdom and doesn't have their own king. That's what they want, their own king. So I personally thought that was a dumb plan. And really? Secondly, and also I think that again, like you said, they don't have time for it. So why are we seeing the scene? Because I don't see why that scene was there, because is there going to be time for this? Like, I don't know.
Don, Vice and Fire, good to see you. You're saying that Dany would never marry a bastard, but she's in love with him. Can't you tell all the pretty scenes? Kissing by the waterfall. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and get into them riding dragons. That part of it. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about it, saying it's all wishy-washy. And when I first saw the scene, I was like, oh boy, everyone's going to call fan service on this one, because people have been wanting Jon to ride one of Dany's dragons since season 1. I've seen stuff like when season 2 or season 1 was airing about Jon riding one of Daenerys' dragons. Well, not season 1 because the dragons weren't around, but season 2.
The dragons didn't even come out to season 1, but
season 2, I should say. I've seen stuff way back in season 2 of like, it's going to be so awesome when Jon rides his dragon. So, but I didn't think this was too fan servicey. I actually thought it was sort of in line with the characters. And of course, if you watch the after show thing with Dan and Dave, they were saying that it was them. Nancy T's getting sick in the chat thinking about Jon and Dany together. But anyway, Dan and Dave were dropping hints, saying that was their way of dropping hints that Jon was a Targaryen. And he was like, and they went as far to say like, oh, he's a bit dumb for not even considering that. But has it really been established that only Targaryens can ride dragons? I don't remember that being established.
Well, I mean, in the show, not really, but in the books, yes.
I thought it was the other way around, that the books didn't.
Well, I don't know. I'm reading Fire and Blood, and it seems like it's very much and it's not even just Targaryens, but certain Targaryens. Like in Fire and Blood, like the whole history of the Targaryens, it's almost, I think, pretty much never does a non-Targaryen ever ride a dragon. And even some of the actual Targaryens are like, it's not for me. So it seems to be very much tied to Targaryens. And I don't know if maybe that just has to do with the fact that they were always in power and they didn't let other people ride the dragons. That might have been part of it. But it definitely seems to be some kind of connection there. So I thought, I mean, I think Dan and Dave are going a little bit too far by saying Jon was a little stupid for not realizing it. I was looking at it like Dany has no idea that he is a Targaryen. Like, what makes him makes her think that he won't just fall off a Drogo or a Rhaegal? Like, what if she went back to the north? Like, oh, here's the funny thing. Sorry guys, but Jon just fell to his death off of my dragon. Like, sorry about that. I mean, what would they do then? Like, I thought she was being a little too reckless. Like, oh, come on, Jon, get on the dragon. Like, how did she know that he would survive?
I don't know. I think I kind of think that she thought in her mind, maybe in Jon's mind too, that it's because Dany was shown, the dragons can tell how much she likes Jon and they can tell how close she is to him. So they would, since they're attached to her, that they would know, they would then move some of that attachment over to him. I think that was their thing. And that was kind of my thinking too at the time. I didn't even consider this Targaryen thing until then Dave brought it up. But I guess that does make a bit more sense.
I've always thought that, because remember, that's why everybody always used to think that the three heads of the dragon were Tyrion, Jon, and Dany, and they were all going to ride a dragon because they were all Targaryens. Yeah. I mean, this has been the theory forever.
Yeah. That's true.
Those three would ride it because they're Targaryens. It's all I've always heard that Targaryens ride dragons. Like, since I've been into this, like I've always made that association. So I mean, I just didn't think of that when I was watching this episode, though. But I want to address the chat here.
I was about to do that.
So did Jon ride a dragon back in season 7? Because somebody else brought that up in one of my in the comments of my videos. The Magnificent Seven wrote, but wasn't Dany driving on that?
Exactly.
If I remember correctly.
Exactly.
That makes the difference. They were just like passengers. Yeah, that's different than being the main guy riding it. Jon is the first one besides Dany to, I guess, drive a dragon, if you want to call it that. But, so I don't really count that, because they're like passengers on the dragon.
Yeah, because that means that Jorah and Tormund are Targaryens as well.
Right. Right, and it's not. Well, that's the person in my comment trying to make the case you don't have to be Targaryen, but they were just passengers. Like, they're not.
Yeah, they were exactly. It makes a huge difference because Jon solely got on by himself and was actually at one point he was like steering him as well.
Yeah. Khaleesi of the Great Dairy State says pilot to dragon. Yeah, pilot is the better word.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not the kind of ride I was talking about. Okay, Don. What are you talking about then?
Okay, Don.
Jon was not. Oh yeah, he wasn't on the dragon. That's a good point. He wasn't even on the dragon. He fell into the ice and he made his way back to eastward because he's like. Got all that plot armor and all that stopped him from freezing to death, from getting hypothermia. Yeah, Benjamin came and did the Ex Machina. We don't have time, and let's falling down that hole again. Okay, so let's move on over. I want to talk a bit more about Arya. We kind of touched on her a little bit. I do really love the scene with her with Jon Snow, and I like that the whole intro that she was watching, like the whole royal procession, and that I almost expected her to call out to Jon or to call out to Gendry, but I like that she didn't. I like that they saved, and then in fact she wasn't even there for the big meeting, and that they saved her introductions and her reunions with these characters that are so important to her in private. I think that really worked. I think that was the right decision, and I did, even though I didn't like Arya siding with Sansa, I did really like her reunion with Jon. I think, and I know a lot of people thought this was a bit too sappy or too like, oh, let's just do the callbacks, but I think we needed this. These characters hadn't seen each other since like the second episode of the entire fucking show, and they've been established to have this strong connection, so we definitely needed this scene. I think it was well earned, and I would have been pissed off if we didn't get this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, what's wrong with people going? Oh, it's people just gonna complain about everything. Somebody's gonna complain about everything. Oh, it's too sappy that these two characters haven't seen each other since the second episode, who were established to like be super super close, and who were the only really two people that trusted each other at the time because they were both outcasts in the Stark family. Arya was the girl who didn't sew and wanted to play with swords, and Jon was the bastard. They were both outcasts, and they had this really, really strong bond, and that was established in just 2 episodes. And they haven't seen each other since the beginning of the series. Who complains about this? I don't understand what is wrong with people. Do you have no heart, people? I thought it was amazing. I love that she showed him that she still had needle. I mean, this scene was fantastic. I love that it took place by the weirwood tree there, by the what you call it? Yeah, but yeah, I loved it. The Godswood is the word I was thinking of. Yeah. I absolutely loved this. It was possibly my favorite scene, or one of my favorite scenes of this episode. So, how you can complain about that? You're heartless. I don't know. I don't understand it.
And the other thing is, like, Needle was so important to her, like, through her whole journey, her whole hardship. It's what she clung to, is how she remained a Stark and didn't become a faceless man, and is the one, like, shining thing. So for her to, like, show the sword to him, like, that was an important moment that we needed, that I still have the sword. And it was really good when, you know, he was like, oh, have you used it? She's like, yeah, once or twice. But that does bring up the other question, which I've seen some different opinions on, is do you think that Jon is aware of Arya's abilities? Because I think it's plausible. It's in the realm of possibility in my mind that Sansa told Jon about her off screen, because this happens sometimes in Game of Thrones. Sometimes they do a lot of stuff off screen. But I wasn't quite sure on that. So what was your take on it?
I think that even if Sansa told Jon off screen, I think it's still going to be like what I said with Sansa and Lady Mormont not really grasping the White Walkers. I think Jon wouldn't really fully grasp it until he sees Arya like pull a face off and murder, like poke somebody's eyes out and cut them. I don't think he really, even if he heard about it, he would still think, oh, this is my little sister. Like, I don't think he would really fully understand how dark she is. I don't think there's any way he possibly could until he sees her. He may know, you know, from what Sansa told him off screen, he might know that, okay, she's not the same. She's a lot darker now, but I don't think he could ever fully grasp just how much to the dark side she really has gone until he sees it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's possible that, that he might know that she's a killer now and she has good fighting skills. But yeah, he still would never know the extent. It's kind of like the same thing you're saying about how Sansa and her and everyone else don't know the full extent of the White Walkers because they haven't seen them for themselves. And it's kind of the same thing with Arya. It's like you don't really know the full extent until you see it for yourself. But anyway, we also get the reunion of Arya with Gendry and Hound, and they did that in the same scene as well. And I think both of these were perfect. I think we needed both of these. I would have been pissed off if we didn't get both of these. First off, the Hound, like that was so true to their characters. I think I'm so glad. Like they could have went the way to have them hug or maybe say, "Oh, I'm glad you survived" or something. I'm glad they were just like they were being very standoffish. And he's like being rude to her. He's like, "Oh, you left me for dead," and she's like, "Yeah, and I stole your money too." And then it's like, "You're a cold-hearted bitch. That's probably why you're still alive," and just walked off. Which I think is his way of saying, "Oh, you're so great. I'm so glad you're here."
Yeah, no, I thought it was perfect. It was the perfect. It wouldn't have made sense if they actually hugged. It would be like, what is going on here? Like, it wouldn't make it. That was exactly perfect for both of those characters, for the relationship that they've established. It couldn't have been a better reunion. And yeah, what I said in my review is the way the Hound said, "Oh, you're a cool bitch," was the Hound equivalent of if a normal person would go, "Oh, I love you, it's so great to see you," and give him a big hug. That's the Hound equivalent of that. Just like going, "Oh, you're such a cold bitch. guess that's why you're still alive. I mean, that's the Hound's way of showing affection. And you brought up a great point in your video that I didn't even think of about how he was trying to teach her how to be more cold and was telling her she was too nice. And then now he sees that she's followed his teaching, so he's proud of her.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I get out of this. Not only is he, that's his way of saying happy, that's his way of saying, oh, I'm proud of you that you actually followed my teaching and became a cold bitch.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to move on to Gendry. And their reunion as well, because I also thought that was perfect. Now, I heard some people saying, oh, I think they're being snippy and antagonistic to each other. It's like, are we watching the same thing? Like, to me, it was very clear that they were harping back to that same sort of banter that they had when they were together in season 2. And I think because Arya, maybe definitely to a much lesser extent than Bran, but she's kind of become a bit cold and unfeeling. We saw this with her reunion with Hot Pie in season 7, so I think it took her a little while to get into it. I think her first reaction was to be like, what are you talking about? But then she realized, oh, he's just doing what he did before, and then she smiled. And I actually saw them as flirting with each other. I wouldn't be too surprised that this might lead to a little something before Gendry dies in episode 3. I mean, oh, sorry. That is total speculation, by the way. I don't know any spoilers. But anyway, I did think that it might lead to a little Gendry Arya romance, and I've heard some people say, oh, God, fan servicey, but I think I would be in favor of that. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of with what Bran said at the beginning of the episode. We don't have time for this. like I don't think that they have time for a Gendry Arya romance at all. I think that all it was to me was a callback to season 2, that the way it was kind of a little bit tiny flirty back in season 2, even though he was like way older than her. But the way he was like, oh, Lady Stark, my lady. I mean, that was a total callback to how he behaved with her in season 2, and Arya smiled, and just because Arya, I think, was remembering the good old times and having a good connection with this person. I personally didn't see it as super flirtatious or as a sign that they're going to get together or anything. I just don't think they have time for that storyline. But I definitely didn't see it as contentious. It was definitely like, oh, it's so good to see you again, and we're reliving our old days kind of thing. Like, that's how I read it.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. The sappy side of me kind of hopes that they will continue this. But Colonel Doomsday does not agree. He's got the sick face saying, oh, God, fan service. But Khaleesi says it was adorable. So, yeah, different opinions on that. I'm sorry. I actually side on the adorable side. Like, you know me, there's some fan service like I absolutely can't stand, and some I'm okay with. But I kind of expect it to not go anywhere there. I think you're right, ultimately, that we don't have time for this, and that Gendry's probably going to die soon anyway. Maybe that's just drive Arya's need for revenge more.
Yeah, I actually forgot about Gendry. When I did my predictions, and I predicted a whole bunch of people to die in the battle. I would have said Gendry, but I didn't mention him at all. I just completely forgot all about him. But I definitely think he's dead after the battle. But as well, I think the battle is going to be the way of just knocking off a lot of characters.
I think it kind of has to be, because watching this episode now, how many ridiculously characters, there's like a sheet load of characters, and some people were like, oh, that's why some people complain, because there's so many different scenes with all these different reunions, but that's because you have all these characters in one place, so you need to have that. But I'm thinking, they need to thin out these characters. There's too many of them. I still believe they should have thinned some of them out in season 7, but hey,
I agree too, and I still don't understand why Tormund and Beric Dondarrion survived the fall from the top. They were at the top of the wall when they came down. Like, how are they? There's just no explanation. They're just walking around Last Hearth, and like, I don't know. I'm trying to move past that.
Alejandra in the chat says then the House of Baratheon would really be dead. So if Gendry died, then the House of Baratheon would really be dead. The show doesn't give a fuck about the House of Baratheon anymore. No. I think they made that clear.
If you even can even count a bastard. I don't know. I think it's questionable.
Well, someone would have to legitimize him. Yeah.
Yeah, and who's going to do that?
Yeah, the Night King. But yeah, and I heard there's some people who are still hoping that Gendry's going to end up on the throne by the end of the show, but I say let it go. It's not going to happen. I don't think there's no way.
Yeah, and I think that would suck if he did. Personally,
you do.
I would absolutely hate that. That would be terrible.
I don't think. To me, I think it would depend on how they did it, but I don't think it's going to happen though. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Let's get into the whole thing with Samwell Tarly.
Wait, before we do that, can I
go ahead.
Something in the chat real quick?
Yeah,
Doomsday saying plot armor for Tormund and Beric. But that's the thing, Doomsday, is the people in Game of Thrones didn't used to have plot armor. Like
absolutely,
they used to kill off a lot of people, and now it's like minor characters. Like, I mean, relatively minor, in my opinion. Tormund and Beric have plot armor all of a sudden. Plot armor that's so thick that it helps them survive a fall from the top of the wall. Like, that's a little heavy plot armor, but the show didn't used to do that.
Or not die of hypothermia when they get just jumped in like ice Arctic cold water and have to walk across the fucking Arctic. But again, these are all season 7 complaints.
Yeah, but I just had to throw that in there real quick.
Absolutely. But but I'm saying it's a good point to bring up because we're only one episode in episode 8, so it remains to be seen if this will be. So if they don't thin out the crowd, which I really think they will, then we know they're falling into the same trap as season 7. If most of these characters survive till the end, then that's just as bad. So we hope that they don't do that and that they've totally gotten rid of the plot armor for season 8. Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and move on to Samwell Tarly. This is probably the part of the episode I have the biggest issue with. Now, the scene with him and Daenerys, I actually had no issue with that. I want to be clear. I actually thought that was really cool. A lot of people pointed, like Dan and Dave themselves pointed out, but anyone who watched the show themselves also can notice like how amazing. What's his name? Something John Bradley, is it?
John Bradley.
Yeah, John Bradley plays Samwell. But an amazing job he did, like reacting to the news, because when she told him that, "Oh, I killed your father," he was like, "Oh, fuck, that sucks." But the guy was kind of a dick anyway. But then she's like, "Oh, but I also killed your brother," and he was like, "No, fuck that." He was like, no, that," and just the way he like almost collapsed from like overwhelming emotion, like that was a really good scene. And I do think that was true to Samwell's character, especially the way that he wasn't rude to Daenerys. He's just like, "You pardon your grace," because that's in his character to be polite, even if he fucking hates her at the moment. So the whole scene I thought was great. But what's your thought on that scene?
Oh yeah, I absolutely thought that scene was great too, and I like that Daenerys was upfront about it. I think you might have mentioned that in your review as well. I felt like that she didn't try to hide it. But, "Oh, you're a Tarly. Okay. Well, nice to meet you. See you later." Like,
yeah, that would have pissed me off. That's a TV trope. So I'm glad it didn't fall into that TV trope.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, I just sort of had him killed because he wouldn't bend the knee. So sorry. Oh well, okay, at least my brother is in charge now. Well, actually, he kind of wouldn't bend the knee either. Funny story.
But the thing is, I thought the way
I like that.
I thought the way that Daenerys revealed it was really true to her character as well, because you could tell she felt bad for him, and she felt bad that she had to break the news to him, but she was being unapologetic. She was not apologizing from it. She was sticking by her choice, saying, "I did the right thing," and that's totally within her character as well.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said too. what else is she gonna do? Like, they're openly defying her. Is she gonna be a ruler? She can't let them live. And I don't know that Sam understands that. Like, if Jon actually had to be a ruler and somebody, did the same thing to him, he would be forced to do the same thing. Like, I don't think Sam really understands that.
As is exemplified with when he beheaded Jenna Slynn.
Yeah.
When someone defies you, you can't just let it stand, and it's just gonna fuck up.
Yeah, but Sam didn't like Jenna Slynn, and he likes it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of do understand why Sam might be a bit not able to grasp it because it's a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's his family. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I do buy that, but. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the scene I didn't like, where Sam confronts Jon and says, "Oh, you're." First, he brings up the father and mother, and then it's an interesting choice. He starts with that. He leads with that, kind of dropping the things like Daenerys shouldn't be in charge, and then he follows it up with why she also shouldn't be in charge because she's actually not the legitimate. Queen. It's you, Jon Snow. This is what I think when Bran said at the start of the episode, we don't have time for this. And actually, I said this in my review, I think Bran's being a fucking hypocrite because it seems like he's pushing for this. Why, if he's not okay with Sansa and Daenerys griping about who should be the king, but he's okay with Daenerys and Jon griping about who should be the king? I don't get that. It seems contradictory to me. I think we don't have time for this shit. Who gives a fuck who the king and queen are? And I hope that they don't dwell too much on the story. And again, this is another pitfall of season 7 because they set up for this whole thing with Jon and with Samwell and Bran being like, "Oh, we have to tell him he should be the king of the 7 kingdoms." And I'm just like, this is fucking fairy tale all of a sudden. What's going on here? So, and I get that same sense with this scene. I don't know if that was how you saw it. How did you see it, Akton?
Well, at the end of season 7, nobody was pissed off more about Bran caring about Jon being the true king than I was. I think I was even more angry about it than you were, at least from our reviews of the finale. I was like, why the fuck does he care about this? I was like, it doesn't make any sense. Coming into season 8, though, I am trying to give the writers a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, and just maybe I'm being naive or having wishful thinking, but just hope that there is some kind of, that it's not as stupid as it seems, that there is actually some kind of legitimate reason when Bran seeing the big picture with his three-eyed raven sight, that it is important that Jon knows right now that he's the king, and that this will come into play against the Night King. And that's why Bran really, I don't know why it would, but there's got to be some just big reason in the big picture that Bran can see with his three-eyed raven sight that Jon needs to know this now. So I'm going to just hope that that's the case until proven otherwise. And then once proven otherwise, then I'll be like, yeah, this sucked. Why did they do this? He's totally contradicting himself. But maybe there is some sort of important reason that Jon has to know this right now in the fight against the Night King that will come to light later. So who knows? So I'm just going to hope that that's the case until it's proven otherwise. So I'm just trying to remain cautiously optimistic that the writers actually didn't totally do something really fucking stupid. So we'll see.
I think I'm a bit more skeptical about it. I did mention in my review the possibility that Bran is setting things in motion. He's purposely telling Jon this because he knows that's going to set a series of events in motion that needs to happen to defeat the Night King. Now, whether or not I believe that's actually going to happen depends on how much, if I think Dana Dave and the writers have moved beyond their pitfalls of season 7. Because if they write season 8 the same way that they wrote season 7, then they're going to misuse Bran. His power is going to be... Because it's funny, at the start of the episode when Bran told Daenerys, "Oh, the Night King has your dragon and he's coming." I'm like, that's great news, Bran. Why didn't you tell this before they fucking took down the wall? If he can see everything, Mr. I can see everything. Why are you just telling them this now? And so if they write Bran the same way they wrote him in season 7, then he is just being a moron. He is being incompetent, and he's not going to use his skills to actually help. He's not smart enough to see that far in advance because he's an idiot. but if I'm looking more optimistic, they move beyond the pitfalls of season 7. There's a totally new season. They're going to try to write it right. Then perhaps that is the case. But I'm still split. I'm 50-50. I'm not ready to trust the writers that much yet.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. Definitely understandable. But I'm just gonna try to wait and see how they ban this out. If it, if it ends up being that it has nothing to do with the Night King, then I'm gonna be like, why did he do that? That makes no sense. So, it just seems like it would be so bad. And I know season 7 at the end was so bad, but I just want to hope that they've gotten past that. So I'm trying to be optimistic that they've gotten past that. So I'm going to wait and see how it plays out.
Absolutely. And I have to give a huge shout out to Nancy T. $20 super chat. Thank you so much. That is so nice of you. You said, glad you fellows are back. Yeah, it's great to be back. Of course, we had to wait till the show is back. I kind of lost interest between seasons, but now the show's back, we're ready to talk about Game of Thrones again. But yeah, anyway, thanks so much. Anyway, so let's get back to Jon, his reaction after finding out that he's Aegon. Oh God, I still doesn't. Well,
that part still bothers me because they're just ignoring the other Aegon that already existed.
Yeah, the whole Aegon. But regardless of the name, I do think Jon's reaction to that was handled right. The way that I thought this was well acted too, the way he just walked right up to Sam. You could tell he was just seething underneath. And he gets right up in Sam's face. He's still they just had this loving reunion. It's like, Sam, you're the person I trust the most. I love you like a brother. And after he says this, he just gets right up in his face. It's like, are you telling me that my father was lying to me my whole life? He's the most honorable man I knew. And then Sam kind of deflates that with, oh, yeah, but you might be the most honorable, but he was just doing it to protect Diana. I thought that made sense. I kind of liked that.
Yeah. And I hope that Jon buys that. I hope that he doesn't hold that against his father. But the way Dan and Nate talked about it in the inside of the episode, they said that Jon was just throwing stuff out there to he's just throwing things in the way of it. So he doesn't really, I don't think he really ever believed that or really ever distrusted his Ned. I don't think he'll ever hold it against Ned Stark. It is gonna be interesting to see how he processes this going forward. And I'm curious to see. I was listening to another discussion where they were talking about will Jon tell people or will he sit on this? Seems like it would be smarter not to tell people, but Jon can be overly honest sometimes. So he's probably just going to tell Daenerys, oh, by the way, I have a better claim to the throne than you, which would be stupid. He shouldn't say that because it doesn't matter. But he does have a tendency to be overly honest. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do think they're building this to be tension between Jon and Dany, which I kind of don't want too much of. But I don't know. For this, I'll hold my reservation until we see what's going on. But anyway, I had to bring up another super chat donation from Derek Taylor. Thank you so much, $10. Very kind of you. Derek says that he needed to tell him to help unite the houses better than Dany. So that was Samwell's point, was that he thinks Jon, not only does he think Jon should be the ruler, because it's not just because he's next in the line of succession, but he honestly thinks Jon will make a better ruler than Dany. And he so happens he has a better claim than her because he thinks that he would do a better job of uniting the houses than she would because she's a bit more arrogant. I can kind of say, and also she's a bit pissed at her at the moment for learning that she killed her brother and father. So I can kind of see that point of view. I think that does make it make a little bit more sense. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do think that I don't know. I lost my train of thought entirely.
But because I can see that point of view that Sam would think Jon would make a better leader and being really pissed off.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, that he's met Daenerys for five minutes. All he knows about her is that she kills his family, and so just based off of that, he's decided Jon would make a better role. He doesn't really know that. He doesn't know Daenerys worth shit. He just knows that she killed two people who refused to bend the knee to her, which any ruler in Westeros would do. Just happened to be his family, so he's really emotional about it. So I don't think he really has good standing to make that. I understand why he did it. It makes sense, but I don't think he has good standing to make a judgment who would be a better ruler. He has no idea. He doesn't know the shit about Daenerys.
Yeah, and plus I can see his point of view, and even even leaving beside the whole killing father-brother thing, he doesn't, as you say, he doesn't know her, and he knows Jon, and he knows that Jon would make a great ruler. But my issue is that he's creating a distraction by doing this. It's a distraction that they don't fucking need right now.
Yeah.
And I buy it for his character because he's a bit grieving, so maybe he doesn't care that he's creating a distraction. But then again, Bran's pushing him to do it. Unless Bran is planning for the end game, like Doctor Strange, then I think that I think it's going to suck. I think they're writing Bran to season 7. It's depending. But I do think that they're being short-sighted by throwing this distraction out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, any more on Sam before we move on?
No.
All right, cool. So let's talk about the big ending with Bran and Jaime, which I actually didn't even cover in my review because I actually don't have that much to say about it. Because I thought I was actually, while I was watching the episode the whole entire time, I was like, I want to see Jaime. If this fucking episode ends without Jaime arriving in Winterfell, I'm going to be pissed. I need to see Jaime in Winterfell. And so we got one kind of snippet, and I was kind of like, I wanted more, but I guess I can wait till the next episode. So we see him, like, as soon as they showed the hooded figure, I knew that was Jaime. I heard some people saying, oh, they thought it was Melisandre or someone else, but I guess it's because I was waiting for him to show up. So as soon as I see a hooded figure, I'm like, Jaime! Has to be. But then he shows up and he sees Bran, he's staring at him, being all creepy. And Bran, of course, told Sam earlier that he's waiting for an old friend. Now, I do think it's apparent that Bran doesn't give a shit that Jaime is the one who crippled him. That's, of course, all Jaime's thinking about. But I think Bran I think he wants him there for some reason. And he doesn't, because he's not really Bran anymore. He's just this unfeeling whatever the hell he is. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree too. I don't think Bran he's not Bran anymore. He doesn't hold a grudge against Jaime for that. He sees things like, four-dimensionally now. He sees the big picture. He sees he's a three-eyed raven now, so he doesn't see things like normal people would see him. So Jaime is obviously like, oh my god, that's the kid I threw out of the window, holy shit. But I don't think Bran actually, he might see Jaime as being important to this battle somehow. He might think Jaime has some kind of key to this importance, and that would be more what Bran would be focused on than the fact that he threw him out of the window. But Jaime is going to be like, holy shit, that's the kid I threw out the window. But Bran obviously was expecting Jaime. He just happened to be there when Jaime parked his horse. When he said he was waiting for an old friend, obviously he meant Jaime. So he's sitting there waiting for Jaime to come. I think he probably was waiting for Jaime for other reasons, not to be like, hey, you threw me out the window.
Yeah, I see Fury says Bran is like the Borg. Now, Bran's like Control. Bran's like an angel. But I don't really have anything more to say about Jaime, but it does remind me of something that I forgot to mention that I need to discuss is Sansa her conversation with Tyrion about how big of a moron he was being for trusting Cersei, because Jaime, of course, is going to show up and reveal that, hey, guess what? Not only is Cersei not coming, but she's actually got all these golden company here to fight you after the battle. And so it's going to be interesting how they react. And of course, like, Tyrion was being an even bigger idiot when he was like telling the people in the north, oh, the Lannister army is coming. And I thought Sansa's so this is the part where I said before that Sansa was being dumb about the other thing, but she was being smart about this. Is something she was being smart about. And I said, like, Sansa should have been there in the previous season when Tyrion came up with this stupid plan. And this part does show that she's the smartest one there, at least in this regard. But of course, I think it was out of character for everyone else to be this dumb anyway. So I think it's kind of meta for that. I think this, some people were saying it's meta, that it's the Dan Dave show writers putting that line in to be like, yeah, Tyrion, you're being stupid, to sort of appease the audience. But they should have never made Tyrion that stupid in the first place. But anyway.
Yeah, and now that they've called it out on screen, like, how are they going to explain why he's been so stupid? I mean, what's the explanation for? She's like, he used to be the cleverest man, and now he's not. So what's the explanation? What changed? Why is he not so clever anymore? Why did he do this? Come up with this stupid plan, and why did he trust Cersei? Like, there's no explanation for it. So it's just a hole. It's one of those holes from season 7 they dug themselves in that they can never dig themselves out of. But
I think it would have made sense, though, to call attention to that, to call Tyrion out for being the moron that he's being.
Yeah. But I know I loved that scene because of that. I love that scene even before that, because I love the callback to the Purple Wedding, and I love Sansa's line about, oh, it had its moments. I love, I love the whole thing, but I especially loved it because she said exactly what I've been saying for the last year and a half or whatever since the last episode aired. The exact same thing that I've been saying, though. Why the fuck did Tyrion believe this in the first place? I never understood that. And my prediction was when Jaime would come up, Tyrion would go, my word, I'm shocked. I can't believe my sister would do this. I mean, I don't understand why he ever believed her. So I did like that Sansa called him out. I actually love that scene.
Yeah. Okay, there's a couple things in the chat I want to address. First of all, another super chat donation from Derek, another $2. Thank you so much for that. Very much appreciated. And you asked, are the PPV plot leaks accurate so far? I don't know, and don't tell me, because I have not seen any plot leaks whatsoever. I know in previous years I have, but this year I was like trying to remain as spoiler free as possible. Like, I didn't even know about the Battle of Winterfell until like just a month ago or something. I'm trying to be as spoilers free as possible, so please do not discuss them in this chat.
Yeah, I didn't even know there were any plot leaks. I thought that they had kept a lid on it this year, but
I think there were some, maybe not as detailed as season 7.
Yeah, if there are, please keep them away. We don't want to know anything about them.
And also, Icy Fury says, in some ways, Tyrion has been an idiot for the last 2 seasons. I would actually disagree with that. I think season 6, he wasn't being an idiot, because I think he did bring peace to Meereen, and he ultimately managed to shape it up. I know people have different opinions on that. To me, he wasn't being an idiot until season 7. But
I agree with you, Mark. Yeah, I don't think he was being an idiot till mid-season 7, really.
Yeah, I mean, his plan to take Castle Rock is kind of questionable.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, that's true.
It wasn't as bad, though. He didn't become a complete moron until that whole plan. Let's capture... Anyway, not talk about season 7.
What they should have done is captured the weight and took it to Winterfell and showed Lady Mormont and Sansa and Lord Glover, apparently.
Actually, yeah. Actually, that is a very good point. Oh, jeez.
Oh, it doesn't matter. You've got to be king of North. You see this thing here? That's going to be you. That's going to be me. This is going to be my time. I'm just going to be a white. Nobody's going to be king of the North anymore. We're all turning into this. See this? It doesn't matter who's the freaking king. Like, that's what he should have done.
All right. So is there any characters, any part of the Winterfell section that I left out that you want to talk about before we move on to another location?
I don't think so. Can I bring it back up again if I remember one later?
Oh yeah, sure.
Because I thought there was something else, but I can't think of what that might be. So let's move on.
Yeah, I'm at a loss as well. Okay, so let's go over to King's Landing. Cersei was like, "Why didn't you bring the elephants?" And she like wouldn't let it go. She goes, has sex with Euron. It's like, I'm so disappointed they didn't bring elephants. Well, I heard someone else say that this is also kind of meta, that it was their way of saying, like, because they couldn't afford it in the CGI budget and they didn't feel like doing it, and they knew that book readers know that the Golden Company had elephants, so they had Cersei be the surrogate for those who were expecting to see elephants.
I don't know. I feel like the people who would Stannis had the Golden Company. Everybody forgets that, but he had the Golden Company. They were in the north with him, and nobody said anything about the elephants then. I think the people who know about the Golden Company have the elephants, who would say anything about it, are like 0.001% of the whole audience. Like, I just don't understand why they I understand they don't have the CGI budget, but it's weird that they drew attention to it, because I don't think anybody, like 99.9% of the audience, wouldn't even ever think of the elephants. Like, I never would have thought of the elephants.
Yeah, I didn't know the Golden Company had elephants. That's news to me.
Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing about that before, but I think like 99% of their general audience would never think of that. So it's funny that they brought attention to it. I kind of saw it as and maybe I'm wrong, but kind of showing like how Cersei is slowly deteriorating, because she was acting like a crazy person there. She was acting a little childish. Like the way she was obsessed over something so petty like that. I thought maybe that might be the beginning of her deteriorating into madness, but that maybe I'm overreading things. But I thought that would be the purpose of that, because otherwise I don't know why you draw attention to the elephants. Sure, you can't put them in the CGI plot, or you can't afford the CGI and put them in the plot. But it was funny that they draw attention to it, because I don't think most people would ever think of the elephants.
Yeah, and also I think like the Captain Strickland, like his excuse for not bringing elephants sounds pretty legit to me. It seems like taking elephants in the boat all the way across the sea would be a huge ordeal.
Yeah.
So maybe that goes to your point of Cersei being a bit crazy, because she was a bit nutty to expect them to bring them in the first place.
Yeah, it was almost like, it's like, oh, well, why would I hire the Golden Company if you don't have elephants? I was told there would be elephants. Like, I think you guys should just go away now. I'll go hire somebody else who can bring me elephants.
Yeah. So what did you think of the Captain Strickland? I mean, we didn't get much of him, but a lot of people thinking, well, they introduced him, they gave him a name, so that means he's going to come into play later on in the season. It's kind of like the whole Chekhov's introduction or whatever. The whole Chekhov's gun thing is that.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do something. I don't think he's going to be any major character, but I'm sure he'll play a role somewhere in here. Probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Smokey Earth says 100% right. Never broke a contract. They did after he burned Shireen. That's a good, because the whole thing about the Golden Company, our word is good as gold. We never break a contract. And yet they just abandoned Stannis.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, it seems like nobody else remembers that Stannis had the Golden Company. Everybody seems to be acting like this is the first time we've ever seen the Golden Company in the show, and we didn't really see them, but we heard about them. They were mentioned several times.
They weren't wearing all gold like they were in this episode.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that, didn't realize that, because they kind of didn't they didn't really highlighted. They kind of just slipped it under the radar. The Golden Company, because a lot of people were even saying that the Golden Company wasn't there. Like, a lot of people would argue against that. So I think I think that makes sense. That they didn't highlight it, and I think maybe they're kind of just trying to forget about that at the moment. Like, I don't think we'll get any references to that going forward.
Yeah.
I wondered what Harry Strickland's accent was. That sounded like the generic ASOS accent to me. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even remember what he sounded like, honestly.
But I mean, I still have no idea how the Golden Company and how Cersei in general is still going to come play in the rest of the season. So this is still like all laying groundwork. Now, what did you think of the whole thing with Euron? Because I was saying, like, I thought that made total sense that he'd be demanding a little something from her because he's done so much for her and that she's giving him jack shit. And I pointed out that she kind of realized that she needs him and she realizes that she's done jack shit for him, so she needs to give him a little something. But Khaleesi of the Great Dairy State in chat has pointed out to me earlier that perhaps Cersei's actually also a bit lonely after Jaime left, that she has no one to confide in and she's going a bit mad and a bit lonely, so that might also contribute to why she took Euron to her bed. And she seems to like him to an extent because she's like, oh, you're so arrogant. I like that about you. So it seems like she is warming up to him to some extent.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I heard this theory, I don't know that I really buy it, but that she might be using Euron to, when she has the baby, she can say that it's Euron's baby because she's now disowning Jaime or whatever, and she doesn't want to. I don't think that's the case, but I've heard that as like that's the theory that she's she wants to have sex with Euron so she can say it's Euron's baby.
Yeah, I think I brought up that possibility in my review, but I think I brought it up to dismiss it.
Yeah,
I don't see her wanting to do that because I don't see if this hypothetical situation that's never actually going to come to pass that Cersei actually becomes Queen of the Seven Kingdoms after everything's done, and there's in that scenario that's not going to happen. Either Cersei or Euron's going to die. There's absolutely no scenario that one of the two don't try to kill each other once they don't need each other anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Euron's going to get mountainaged. I think he's going to get crushed by the mountain or something. Yeah, I don't think Euron comes out of this season alive.
Yeah, but I do hope they keep him alive a bit longer to make his.
Oh yeah, I think it'll be the end before he dies. I think it'll be toward the end.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, by the way, we can get to this at the end, but I just remembered I wanted to talk about the Ned Umber scene a little more.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we are. So you're counting that as a different location?
Yeah, that's actually
because it's not Winterfell.
Yeah, it's
just the Last
Hearth. Yeah.
Okay.
King's Landing.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because I did want to talk about that. All right.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah. So anyway, let's get to the whole like Theon capture of Yara, because I'm kind of in two minds on this, because I've heard a lot of people complain that it was too easy, it happened too fast, it was anticlimactic, it was like they made such a big deal in season 7 about, oh, Yara's captured and Theon has to go on this whole quest and they're setting it up, and the very next scene is just like, here you go, you're rescued. And I'm of two minds of that, because I can see that point of view. Definitely was very easy for them to do it. But on the other hand, I'm glad they got this over with. I didn't want a whole drawn-out storyline of Theon trying to rescue Yara. I think, oh, good. So this is out of the way. And Yara's actually, she says she's going to retake the Iron Islands, which is showrunner's way of saying write her off the show until she's needed, which I'm fine with. And also excuse for so Theon can stop fucking around down there and go back to the Winterfell to be with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it almost seems like they're going a different direction than they originally wanted to, because it seems the way that they set it up in season 7 that this was going to be a big thing, that this was going to be some big storyline, but it seems like they were like, no, let's forget that. Let's just have them rescue her and get her off the show. We don't want to deal with her. I mean, that's the way I look at it, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it, because I wasn't necessarily that invested in this big Theon storyline anyways, so I don't really care. But it does feel that way to me, that it seems like it was set up for something bigger than what it turned into, and they just changed their mind.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it definitely comes off that way, and I think it's a strong possibility that is in fact the case, because we have seen in previous seasons, like with season 6, apparently, like Dr. Bashir was told the original plan for Dorne was he's going to have lots of appearances in season 6 and going to do a whole thing with Dorne, but they changed directions because everyone hated Dorne, so they just killed them all off in the first episode, and so they had changed direction before mid-season based off the reception, which I actually think is a good, maybe in season 6 that wasn't a good thing, they just fucked things up more, but in this case I think it's a good thing because they did fuck up season 7, so if they do take note of the complaints everyone had and try to address that, that's nothing but a good thing. And so maybe they noticed that nobody really cared about the whole long drawn out Theon Yara storyline, so it's like, yeah, let's just get this over with in the first episode. I'm actually happy with that decision, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny that it was just like these couple of inept guards that they could just easily take out, and Euron just busy having sex and just leaves Euron tied up on the ship, and they just easily go in and they're like, oh yeah, so Euron left the Iron Islands, just go take those back with no problem.
Well, was it you or was it someone else that pointed out that why didn't Euron put Yara in the black cells or someplace instead of just leaving her on the ship where she could easily be rescued?
I didn't point that out, but that is a good
point. Okay, it must have been someone else. Yeah.
But I do agree with that. That is a good point.
Yeah, because I didn't think of that either. And I've heard some reasons of why maybe the rescue was so easy, because the Ironborn, like Theon and the Ironborn, know the Ironborn. They know their defenses, so that's why they were able to go through them so quickly. And also, I pointed out in my thing, because they mentioned that Euron mentioned how they cut off the tongues of all these people, and that seemed like a dumb decision because they could have cried out for help, and they couldn't cry out for help. They couldn't talk, so that made them more vulnerable.
Was this the first time they mentioned that in the show? I mean, I know there was a thing in the books, but I didn't recall them ever having mentioned that in the show before.
It's to my recollection, it is. They might have had one like doorway line in season 6, but I don't recall if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's over with. So anyway, let's talk about Bran. Let's talk about Bran, baby, because as we all said, this is the token prostitute scene that we have to have every season. It does seem. Someone brought up that it seemed like, couldn't Qyburn just have waited? Like,
that's what I said. What was the big rush? Like, he was like, "Oh, Jaime and Tyrion probably aren't going to survive, but here's your money in case they do. You can kill." Like, what was the big hurry? Like, he could have waited months. I mean, why did he have to tell him like right that?
I know. It seemed like Qyburn just wanted to be a dick to him.
Yeah, it just seemed like that they always have to have a brothel scene being interrupted by somebody. That's an old Game of Thrones trope. Somebody has to go in and interrupt them while they're doing anything.
And the thing I brought up is that Qyburn said, "Oh, well, it's not likely they're going to survive. So what's going to happen to that gold if they don't survive? They're just going to give it to Bran for free?" Or they're going to be like, "Actually, well, let's take that gold back."
I don't know. I'll see how it goes, but to me, this just seems like a way to try to force feed Bran into the plot. I don't. Just for that reason alone, like they're hiring him to do something that is very unlikely that he's going to need to do, and they're already giving him gold. That just, to me, seems like we like this character. Everybody likes this character. We got to figure out a way to keep him on the show, and I don't know. I'll reserve judgment to see how it plays out. Maybe it'll end up being good, but it seems a little forced to me right at this moment.
So I completely agree. I think this is definitely because Bran's in King's Landing and no one else in it except for Cersei and her people. So the only way to bring him back into the fold is to have him work with Cersei. So I think that's totally what it is. It's just some way to bring Bran back in the fold. Now, I think they're setting themselves up for failure here, in my opinion. I don't see there's any way that this could be resolved in a satisfying manner. Because if Bronn actually does kill or try to kill them, then I think that's totally kind of out of his character. And unless they did something to make it fit into his character, it doesn't seem like that's something that he would do. But if he doesn't do it and nothing becomes of it, then what's the whole point of bringing this up in the first place? Is kind of all a waste of time. So I think, to me, this is kind of a lose-lose scenario.
Yeah, Bronn could play another role. Like, he could, I don't know, decide to turn on Cersei and kill her instead, or I don't know. He could do something different. But you're right. He's not going to kill Tyrion and Jaime, or if he does, then that would be against his character, so it would be dumb. So, so maybe there's some other reason for this. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell you how disappointed and pissed off it would be if Bronn killed Cersei.
I wouldn't kill her. I think just as long as somebody kills her, I'm not into. Or you and I know, I think a lot of other people forget that the Valonqar prophecy was not in the show. Yeah. So we're not tied to that. So Cersei could die in any number of ways. And so I'd be okay, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, she can die in any number of ways, but some of those ways would suck, because that's just like getting killed by Bronn. Yeah. Come on, it doesn't have to be a Valonqar, but it has to be better than Bronn. But Don in the chat says Chekhov's crossbow, and that's kind of a good point. Like, why introduce the crossbow if it's not going to come up later on? But I don't know. Maybe they'll surprise me. Thursday. Maybe they'll surprise me and do something good with it. But at the moment, I don't have that much faith. They have to earn my faith back before.
I honestly don't have a lot of faith that this is going to be anything good either, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Would Bronn, Icy Fury says, would Bronn really trust Cersei? I don't know. Like, he trusts gold, but again... yeah. It's hard to say. But I like how he brought up at the front. It's just like, when Qyburn's like, we'd like to rectify the situation. It's like, yeah, you rectified me right out of my castle.
I like that line as well.
Anyway, anything else on that before we move on?
No, we can move on.
All right, so I think we're done with King's Landing. So let's go to Last Hearth. And I was saving this for its own separate location. I didn't notice till the second time I watched the episode that they actually had it in the intro, that they actually showed the Last Hearth. And they showed like the blue tiles going up to it to indicate that that's where the White Walkers were.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all until you mentioned it in the review. I didn't even notice the blue things for the White Walkers. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and again, I thought we'd never see this castle, because I would predict it we'd see it in season 6, and since we didn't, it's like, okay, because we've never seen it.
Wait, didn't we not see it in season 2 or end of season 1 rather, when Rob went to Great John Umber first, Rob Stark?
Oh, were they at the Last Hearth?
Yeah. Wasn't that at the Last Hearth when he went to try to get Great John Umber on his side? And
for some reason, I always thought that was at Winterfell, but I think you're right, because all the lords were gathered there, not just Umber.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been somewhere else, but it wasn't Winterfell. I know that for sure. Okay. Rob Stark was traveling.
Well, you might be right. Maybe that was the first time we saw it. Now this is the second.
Yeah, time. It could have been somewhere else, but I don't know.
I didn't.
Anyways,
think about it. But anyway, they show it just and show everyone dead. And at first, to be honest, when I first watched the scene, I didn't even realize. I didn't know where the hell they were. I thought maybe.
I know, me too. I didn't either. I was like, where the hell are they?
I thought maybe they're at Castle Black, but it does make sense. Why would they go back up to Castle Black? It does make sense that they're both headed down. And this is one thing I liked, how Jon said that he's calling the Night's Watch down because there's no point in having them guard the wall now. I don't want
to nitpick geography, but do you know the geography? Does it make sense to go to the Last Hearth from both East Watch and from Castle Black? Aren't those two castles kind of far apart? Like, would the Last Hearth be on the way down to Winterfell from both places?
It might be evenly spaced between them, or somewhat evenly spaced between them.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'd have to look at a map of Westeros.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the groups probably had to go out of their way to do it.
Yeah.
But it does kind of make sense that they might converge on that, because that is a castle. That's the most northernmost castle. So even if it's a little bit out of their way to get to Winterfell, it does make sense that they might take a little detour to check on it.
And I'm not getting too caught up on it, but Ned Umber was the one character who did the Littlefinger's teleporter in this episode. Like, how did he get all the way back to the Last Hearth and it only from Winterfell, and just now Beric Dondarrion and the Night's Watch are just now getting to it after he did and already got killed?
Honestly, after the many ridiculously outrageous offenses of season 7, I'm not sweating this one.
No, I'm not sweating it. I'm just pointing it out that we did get our first Littlefinger teleporter. Because the number did use the teleporter. But whatever, I've decided this season that I'm not going to worry about it. They're going to go down to King's Landing in 5 minutes and come back up to Winterfell 5 minutes later. That's fine.
I'm hoping that they don't do anything as egregious as they did in season 7.
Yeah.
And I think since everything's like converging in locations, I think they could. Because last season, everyone was moving all over the map, so they felt the need to totally fuck up travel times. But the way the plot is in this season, I'm hoping they can avoid any gross offenses like that. Like this thing with Ned under there, that's fine. I mean, I'll almost buy that enough time has passed to let him get.
I can't. I mean, he was in Winterfell, which is much farther away from the Last Hearth than the Wall is, and he got there way before them. So I know. They should have already been.
Yeah,
they should have already been on their way down.
Actually,
Beric and the Night's Watch, all of them should have all been on their way down already, and they're way closer to it. And he got there first and had time to be killed by the.
You're right. You're totally right. I guess Duller said and Tormund were taking detours and doing sightseeing, and taking their time to get a little sightseeing. I guess Beric and Tormund had to resurrect themselves after falling off the wall. Right. You gotta allow some time for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yes, that definitely was a use of the teleport, but still it's not that egregious where I'm gonna throw a fit about it. But and plus we got a cool scene out of that. I did think that was a really cool scene with Ned Umber pinned to the wall and how he started freaking out. Like this as I said at the start of the video, this gives me hope that they're going to do the White Walkers right this season and not fuck it up like they did in season 7, because this is doing them right. This is the kind of ominous, weird, fucked up shit. That,
it reminds me of the opening scene in the first episode, which is how they set the tone for the White Walkers in the very beginning. This very creepy scene. And this was even creepier than that. So it was, very good. And Tormund Giantsbane is just talking like, "Oh, we got to get our horses and we got to go down." All of a sudden, he goes, "Ah!" It was great. I thought it was really good.
Oh, I see. Fury says, "I thought Alice Karstark would also die," and then Alejandra says, "Yes, something will happen with the Karstarks." I don't think so, because the Karstark, she was showing up in Winterfell with the Karstark, so I think they're fine. I mean, maybe they'll all die in battle, but
they might all die in battle, but I mean,
but that's about it. I mean, I don't think anything special is going to happen to them. But,
I agree with you.
But yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that spiral evoke in season 1 because it does seem like a lot of this episode was doing the callbacks to the first episode and to season 1, which is kind of what a lot of final seasons like to do. They like to do callbacks, and in my opinion, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. Lost. Bad way to do it. This is actually a good way to do it. I think this is it's the way it's subtle. It's not hit you over the head with the flash sideways. that I think actually works for the show. But the thing is, with that scene, I didn't even think of that first scene, but until people brought it up, and once they brought it up, it's like, oh, that makes total sense. I was actually thinking of season 3 opener, which is was in itself a callback to the first episode, where Mance Rayder and the Yellows show up and they see all the spiral of the horses. And I was talking to someone about this, and I think that I hope that they actually somehow resolve or explain the whole spiral thing.
Well, I want to talk about this really stupid theory. I don't know if you've heard this really dumb theory about this.
All right, go ahead. No, I haven't heard it.
This really stupid theory that makes no sense. That people are like looking at that spiral and comparing it to the Targaryen flag and saying, "Oh, the Night King was a Targaryen," but even though we've already seen that the Night King was made by the Children of the Forest, like way, way, way before there were Targaryens, so that's already been disproven. But people are like, "Oh, this means the Night King is a Targaryen," because the spiral looks somewhat similar to the Targaryen sigil.
That's even stupider than I thought it would be.
And it's a popular theory too. It's like all over the internet. Everybody's talking about it. Like people are into it.
Well, let's not get into all the stupid theories that have actually become popular. Gendry gift. Excuse me.
Dario.
Dario Harvey.
I actually heard the sub theory of that it was the Night King's way of giving a message to Dany, like he's going specifically after Daenerys because he's showing the Targaryen symbol and he's like giving her a warning. Not quite as stupid as the Night King being a Targaryen, but also pretty.
I don't know, that one I could actually buy that one a little bit, because I read somewhere, and I think someone involved with the show said, and I don't know if this is true, but this is what I heard, that someone involved with the show said that the Night King is specifically coming down for one person in particular. Like they're looking for someone in particular. And I guess that theory would go along with that, of who he's looking for is Daenerys.
And not Jon? Same symbol since season 1.
Yeah. But I don't know if I buy that. I hope there's much more to. I hope there's something more to it than just that. It's like the Targaryen. I hope that's just a coincidence, because actually someone pointed out. Maybe you just pointed this out. Sorry if you did. But in the scene where Bran saw the Night King getting made by the Children of the Forest thousands of years ago, they had that spiral symbol was there.
But that symbol was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that is true. So it has nothing to do with the Targaryens.
Thousands of years before. I was actually thinking more along the lines that has something to do with the White Walkers' origins and their motivation, which I do hope is explored. I really hope that's explored, because I think the best thing season 8 could do is like reveal this amazing backstory about the White Walkers in Long Night, and that's what the spinoff is going to explore in more detail. Like, we couldn't see the spinoff before this because there's going to be some big revelation that we don't know yet that the spinoff is going to take and run with.
There's something I forgot about when I did my predictions, but there's something Dan and Dave said a while back, that George R.R. Martin, when he ran through the basics of the plot, there were I think 2 or 3 like big what the fuck moments for them that they were really shocked, and one of them was the Hodor thing, and the other one was something at the very end, and I always forget about that, but supposedly there's something George R. R. Martin told them about the very end that Dan and Dave were like, what the fuck, this is a blow away, like on par with the Hodor thing. So that could have something to do with the White Walkers.
I think that would be cool if it did. Yeah, it was some big revelation. Because we were talking about this earlier. If they just have no motivation, they're just as evil bad guys going roar, then it's kind of deflates the show. But.
Yeah.
And Lynn in the chat says maybe it's the White Walker banner. Yeah, I hope there's more to it than that. I mean, maybe so, but I hope there's more to it.
Yeah, it's the White Walker banner. It's the Night King's gonna go sit down and claim their inference and be Night King first of his name, the House White Walker or whatever, and that's their banner.
Yeah, and Icy Fury says, "Are we going to see the Isle of Faces?" And for me, that would be a firm no. I don't think we have time for that. We just got 6 episodes. Unless, I suppose it could make it a huge plot point.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep quoting. Anytime people bring up stuff like that, or are we going to see, is, what's his name, Mira's dad?
Howland Reed.
Yeah. Like, Howland Reed going to come back. All this. I'm just going to keep quoting Bran. We don't have time for this. So they don't have time for all that crap. Like, there's 5 more episodes. There was only 6, and this one was really just setting up the table. So 5 episodes. They're not going to the Isle of Faces. They're not doing all this extra stuff. They got to really get to the point. So
yeah, and I'd actually kind of be pissed off, like, if they took time to do, like, show us the tournament of Harrenhal or whatever and stuff like that. Like, we don't have time to fuck around with this shit. Yeah. But the thing with the Isle of Faces is, like, and I don't think this is that strong of a possibility, but the only way we would see it if it was somehow integral to the plot, that had something to do with explaining the Night King's motivations, and it was very important to explain what's going on. But if it's not, then we're not going to waste time with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other thoughts on the Last Hearth scene?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so that's it then. We've covered anything, unless there's something else you're remembering that we left out.
No, not that I can think of.
Cool. Well, I thought we'd been going for 2 hours, but we haven't because we started late, so really it's an hour and a half. But still, it's a good place to stop here. So I want to thank you guys, everyone in the chat, Icy Fury, Colonel Doomsday, and
I think that's Alejandra. I think that's my name. I think that's my name with an A.
Oh yeah, Alejandro. Yes, I did say it right before. I kind of just slipped that time.
Yeah, and I just gave away what my name was, which I've told some people. Anyways.
Yeah, on your channel, if people are smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys in the chat for joining. Anyone watching this in the archives, thank you so much for sticking around. And of course, Apkin, thank you as always for showing up to talk some Game of Thrones.
Yeah, definitely. It was worth it, even without the elephants. It was discussion. We're going. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to next week. We're going to do it again next week on my channel. Correct. Yes.
Hopefully the same.
So we'll alternate every week. Yeah. That's our goal for the same time, same day. But we'll see. We may have to change that at the last minute, but that's
we don't know if that's definitely gonna happen, but that's what we're gonna try to stick to. Anyway, for anyone who may not know, Apkin, you want to give a quick shout out for your channel and what you're up to?
Yeah, I've got Game of Thrones reviews, obviously, every week. I will try to have them out Monday morning like I did this week. Or some weeks it might be Tuesday morning. But every week I will be doing every episode. And then I'm really excited about the finale of Star Trek Discovery, so I will be reviewing that. Oh, we're probably going to do a Discovery discussion.
Yeah, we'll probably do that before we do the next episode, yeah. Maybe.
I don't know if we will.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I think we might do it the weekend after. Like the week. I don't know. We'll see. We got to discuss this. We're going to do a Discovery discussion sometime. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I've got Discovery reviews, Game of Thrones reviews, doing reviews of the original series of Star Trek. I'm going through every episode of that. So check out my channel. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, checking me out for the first time, my name is Mark. My channel's Enchantment of Eternity, and I am going to cover Game of Thrones every week, and of course do these live discussion videos every week, alternating channels. And I'm also covering Star Trek Discovery for the one episode that has left, and I'm covering Deep Space Nine. Actually, I just finished my coverage of Deep Space Nine, and I'm going to take the bold decision to go into Star Trek Enterprise next and review every episode of Enterprise. So those who like to hear me yell and rant and curse can tune into my first 2 seasons of Enterprise reviews. But if you want something more positive, maybe hold off until I get to season 3. But yes, I am definitely going to take that bold step. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys for joining, and we will see you guys next time.